Hi everyone, in today's video I'd like to speak about one of the quotes directly from the Stack and Tilt book and explain how it can help you eliminate your slice. So if I read the quote from the introduction of the book, if all of the golf instruction books, videos and lessons for the last 100 years had taught people to keep their weight on the left side and to swing their hands inward, we would have generations of golfers drawing the ball instead of slicing. And obviously when you go to your club on the weekend, if you look at the majority of players, they are indeed more likely to be slicers of the golf ball than hookers of the golf ball. So let's examine this quote, see what it means, how you can apply it to your game, so that in these two simple moves, one, having the weight forwards, two, having the hands travel inwards, how that's going to make a difference to your game and eliminate your slice. Let's begin with the weight forwards. So that quote is saying, if golfers had learned to have their weight forwards from the very beginning, that would help them not to slice the golf ball. So how does that work? How does that manifest itself? What does it look like to have your weight forwards? So quite simply, what that is saying is that the majority of golfers, when they play the game, don't ever learn to shift their weight or have their weight sufficiently forwards as they're approaching impact for the moment of truth, and therefore they are hitting the ball with too much of their weight back. How do we define the weight? Well, simply where is the center of your pelvis? Where is the center of your shoulders? And invariably, for most typical recreational golfers, one or both of those centers end up too far to the trail side as the golfer attempts to hit the golf ball. What do you tend to see in the expert players? The shoulder center will stay nice and stable, halfway between each heel, so nice and centered, and the hips, the pelvis center, will continuously go forwards as the golfer comes through the shot in such a way that the good players, when they hit the ball, all have their weight on the lead side like this, shoulders relatively centered. I like to say that around impact, they would have approximately 90% of their weight on the lead side, feel-wise, as they're hitting the golf ball. So they are very much more forwards than the typical golfer who is back. So the good players look like this, weight forwards. The higher handicap golfers look like this, weight back. So that is the first thing it's identified. If all golfers learned to have their weight forwards, that would help to avoid the slice. Now let's get into the why that is. So right here, I have represented two grids on the ground. So what do all these sticks mean? So let's start with these ones right here. So this stick here, that is the point of tangency, that is the low point of this swing arc. So this club is going down, out and forwards until the point of tangency, until the low point, and it's then going up, in and forwards beyond that point, right here. And that point of tangency, in effect, you could say, as the golfer moves their weight back, that point is going to move back on the ground. So with these free balls, the golfer is hitting them after that point of tangency, when the club has already started moving from out to in, therefore creating that pull, that slice shot. If I move back, and you'll see I've got a second grid on the ground, and I've put it more forward, so the point of tangency is more forwards on the ground. And that's because this golfer has more weight forwards. Because this golfer has more weight forwards, these golf balls are now on the right-hand side, on the trail side of this point of tangency, when the club head is still moving down and out. And the outward path here is what enables the golfer to swing more from in to out. So if I stand back a little bit, and I'm in position, so I'm trying to represent these three balls as being roughly in the same position as the four balls on the lower grid. So I'm in position. If my weight is too far back, my point of tangency, my low point moves back, and I hit the ball as the club head is going up and in the slice. If I have my weight more forward, so if I go this way, so I'm shifting my shoulders, my hips more forwards, and as I do that, the point of tangency moves forwards, and as that happens, I'm now hitting the ball on the in to out portion of this arc. We call that the back side of the circle. So with your weight forwards, you can hit on the back side of the circle for an in to out path. With your weight back, you're hitting on the forward side of the circle, and that is the slice. So that is what the weight is helping you do. The more your weight's forwards, the more in effect you'll bring in your point of tangency, your low point forwards, which means you have a better chance, a greater chance of hitting on the back side of this arc as it's still traveling down and out. The second part of the quote talks about the hand path. So if golfers were to bring their hand path inward, again, that would help to eliminate the slice. What's happening in this instance? What does it mean? So again, I've represented our point of tangency, our low point along the ground right here. This orange stick represents the path of the club head going back, and this orange stick represents the path of the hands going back. So you'll notice I've got both the hands and the club head working backwards, upwards, inwards on this arc. Okay, so the hands aren't traveling in a straight line back towards the camera, they're working on an arc back, up, and in like so. Now, it just so happens that so much of the golf instruction of the last 30 years or so has focused on aspects that make it very difficult for golfers to swing their hands inwards. One of the key tenets has been, in order to make a backswing, you would try and keep the trail knee flexed, you would try and keep the pelvis immobilized, and rotate your upper body against that static lower body. Of course, no one can really do this. It's very difficult physically. We don't have that range of motion other than a few rare specimens, and even those golfers do tend to get injured or are maximizing their risk of injury doing so. So what needs to happen is that you need to be in position, and in order to take the hands inwards on this arc, you are therefore going to have to start to straighten the trail knee a little bit, to rotate the hips a little bit to facilitate that motion. Why does it help us with the draw? So I've got the path of the hands that we desire right here, this orange stick. Path of the club head we desire here, this orange stick. In the white, I have the path of the hands that golfers typically make. And likewise, the result of this is this path of the club head in that line. So if I was in position here and I was going to hit a slice, what would you typically see? Well, the golfer would try and take the club back in a straight line, as high and as far as possible, and then the club shaft would tip over, the club head would move excessively outwards, and you have your typical over the top swing, because the golfer has never created any depth with the hands. The golfer has never been able to sufficiently take the hands behind themselves so that they can approach on this similar angle. So if you go back in a straight line and too far upwards, you're going to come across the golf ball because of a lack of depth. If you are able to trace these concentric arcs going back up and in, from here it makes it much easier to swing outwards. So that's what's happening. A simple analogy, if you're trying to kick an object far and the object is here, you're trying to kick it towards the screen, would you take a run up in a straight line? No, you'd come from the inside like so, and that's how you generate potential speed. Same thing applies here to golf. So you'd enable yourself to swing from in to out by having your hands travel inwards. If your hands travel more in a straight line, upwards and outwards even, then very, very difficult to create that in to out path. In fact, you're almost guaranteed to swing from out to in and to make that slice move. And that's the origin of that quote. So if you manage to have your weight forwards, effectively your point of tangency comes forwards with you, so you're more likely to hit on the down and out portion. And simultaneously, if you do that while having your hands go in an arc back behind you, that also maximizes hitting the ball on this back portion of the arc as you're still traveling in to out before the club head has reached this portion where it's going from out to in. So those two things are essential to be able to learn to draw the ball really effectively. To give you a reference point for each of those, starting with the hand path, as you're filming yourself and you're making your backswing, as you go to P3, left arm, trail arm, lead arm parallel to the ground in the backswing, I like to see the hands go through the base of the bicep of that trail arm right there. So if you're filming yourself and that's what it looks like here, you're doing this the right amount, you've got a great chance of coming from in to out. The second reference point, again, the weight is something that's very dynamic and very difficult to monitor for yourself through the course of the swing. So simply look at the finish. If at the finish you can see your belt buckle having gone in front of your lead heel, like so, so bring that line down, then you know you're on the right tracks. But the feel is, the more your weight's forwards, the more you swing your hands in, the more you're going to be able to swing outwards. You'd have, as the golf book says, you'd have generations of golfers drawing the ball. And obviously we want to do these things the right amount, and you don't want to exaggerate. There are very specific guidelines to this, but have those principles in mind. The more you have your weight forwards, the more you swing your hands inward, the easier it is going to be for you to draw the ball rather than slice it. Thank you very much for watching the video, guys. If you have any questions at all, then please do let me know down below in the comments. Please do like and subscribe. It helps me grow the channel and it will help you with your golf. Catch you soon.